Hello, everyone. My name is Jack Farmer, and welcome back to Fit TV, where today we have the pleasure of interviewing a true mixed martial arts veteran, Chris Camozzi, a professional MMA competitor since 2006. Chris has an impressive resume that includes stints in the UFC, Glory, and so many more. Chris has transitioned to the world of Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, where he's off to a fantastic 2-0 start, and today we'll discuss his storied career, his latest victory over Dan Spawn, and what the future holds for this fierce competitor. Now, it's time for our interview with Chris Camozzi. Hey, Chris, thanks so much for joining us here on Fit TV Network.
Hey, thank you for having me.
You know, for these kind of talks, I always like to start off with something simple, just an easy question to sort of loosen things up a little bit. Chris, what is your absolute idea of a perfect breakfast?
Oh man, I'm a big what is it, eggs Benedict, stuff like that. I always change it up. I like corned beef hash.
Yeah,
I love breakfast too. That's why it's hard, because like fight day, I'll eat like pancakes. This past fight, I ate pancakes, like corned beef and hash, like all this stuff, like a big breakfast, and then I didn't really eat the rest of the day. Breakfast is the best.
yeah, you're a big protein guy for breakfast. It's always tough to pass up on any type of eggs, though. But do you like to fight typically on just one meal and then hold you through the day? Is that your general game plan?
For the most part, yeah. I'll eat like a really big breakfast, and then I like to be almost hungry when I go in there. That way, you don't want to be like full and lethargic. And I don't know, something about being a little bit hungry makes you a little bit more like edgy. And they say like primally it makes your senses better and stuff too, because back a long time ago people would hunt when they're hungry, so it's supposed to heighten your senses. And I don't know, I guess I'm just a believer in that.
It's got to make that meal after the fight, when you're no longer trying to get the weigh-ins and all that stuff, just a little bit more satisfying too, right?
Oh, absolutely. You just put all that on your opponent. You're like, you're the reason that I have to do this. So
Do you have a go-to post-fight, I guess, cheat meal where you can eat whatever you want because you've finished all the weigh-ins?
no, usually because it's in like arenas and stuff, and I'm always getting out late, it's kind of like fend for yourself. So if it's hamburgers or whatever they have at the arena, I'm getting something. And then if I get the opportunity for a better dinner, then yeah, like I'll go out to like a steak dinner or Italian food or something like that. It all just kind of depends on where I'm at in the world, and what the atmosphere and mood is like.
Well, you're a professional fighter, as we've discussed a little bit here already, talked about a little bit. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid fights and conflict, but it seems like you've made a career and a life out of running into them headlong. What sent you down this road of picking fights with people?
Man, that's a good one too. I just like, well, one, I love competition. I'm competitive in everything. Like if my girlfriend and I go bowling, I'm trying to win. I don't know why. I've always been like that as a kid. Like I want to win at everything. And for me, I grew up wrestling and stuff, and then transitioning into like doing jiu-jitsu and kickboxing. And for me, fighting is just like the most like primal sport. It's one man against another man, and who's going to walk out the best. So I don't know, there's just something about it that I love. Like I always liked football, rugby, hockey, like every kind of like contact sport, but nothing beats fighting.
Well, I guess with fighting, one of the fun parts about it is just you versus just them, as opposed to if you're playing basketball and your team loses, well, there's a million things that could have gone wrong. But if it's just you and them, it all does kind of come down to you. You must like shouldering that kind of responsibility.
I do, yeah. Because I blame myself, obviously, if I lose. And if you win, it's like, it's your preparation, you and your coaches, and like the work that you put in. And I guess going back to that too, like, fighting is like human chess. Like I love chess, and it is a lot more strategy than people realize. They think it's more just like barbaric brawling, but really there is a ton of thinking and strategy involved, because your mind has to be like firing that night. Because I'm thinking ahead, not what's happening. And I always tell people, it's like, people that have never fought before, they ask me what it's like, and I'm like, it's kind of like doing third grade math while I stand there and like smack you in the back of the head. Like it's harder than you would think to think
Yeah.
in situations.
So that's a good point for people who, obviously MMA has grown in popularity over the past few years, decades or so, but there's still a lot of people who do say, hey, this is some barbaric thing that people are doing. What do you say to people who haven't quite figured out that this is an actual sport that you're doing and it's athleticism and it's more than just brutality?
I mean, I would just say don't watch it. It's not for everybody. There's people out
Yeah.
there that don't like football. There's people out there that don't like soccer, volleyball, whatever. But yeah, it is actually a thinking sport. I like explaining this to people. And just if I want to break it down for you really quick, it's the best way I can put this is like when I go in there and I'm like facing against my opponent, right at the beginning of the fight, I'm literally analyzing everything and I'm like marking it in my head. So we call it feinting, where I flinch. If you ever see a fight where two guys are kind of just like flinching at each other, what they're doing is watching like how your hands move, how your head moves, your feet. And then we make little like markers as we go. And then I remember that because I might not capitalize on it right now, but I remember it and watch like tendencies that you do. So I'm literally logging things as I'm avoiding getting hit and trying to hit, and then using those like on the fly to create opportunities for myself.
Well, we talked about creating opportunities for yourselves. Obviously, you're talking about fights there, which is very interesting to hear. I'd love to hear more about that. But for now, I want to dive just into how diverse your MMA career has been. You have fought all over the place at UFC, amongst other places, but now you've made the transition into Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, where you're doing great so far. What inspired the transition to Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship? And when you've already got a successful career doing one thing, how do you know when it's time to make the transition into something else?
I would say first and foremost, money. um, they pay well, sponsorships are good. Excuse me. And then it's just a new challenge, So I've always said before the end of my career, I want to kind of do every style of fighting. And that's, I've competed in kickboxing for glory, which is kind of like the UFC of kickboxing. I was in the UFC. I've done MMA all over the place. Now bare knuckle boxing. I'd still like to do boxing. I'd like to do like Lethwei. I don't know if you know what that is. Like there's some other sports out there, just because when I'm old, I want to look back and look at it like I did all these things that I wanted to do and did well in them. And they're just life experiences that, at the end of the day, we only get experiences. You don't get to die with money, anything else. We get memories and like, the life we create.
I love that outlook because you're right. At the end of the day, that's all we're left with is the stories. And I want to hear about maybe some of the stories of making the transition from MMA to Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, as far as what's the training like? What were some of the differences that you felt competing in Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship versus a Glory or a UFC? How do they compare for you as the fighter, both in the training and once you're in there competing?
I mean, the biggest thing is bare knuckle boxing is just boxing with the hands, right? So with MMA, that takes out jiu-jitsu, wrestling, kicking, elbows, all of that. So it was cool to kind of like fine tune everything, where with MMA, there's so many aspects you have to train. It feels like there's not enough hours or days in the week because there's so many different like variables, and you can't skip any of them. So you have to structure out your week and make sure you get all of those in. With bare knuckle boxing, I just train boxing every day. There's a few different variations, like, grabbing the head, which we call like the clinch.
Mm-hmm.
And I've trained Muay Thai for a really long time, and that was a part of MMA. So that was pretty easy to grasp onto. It was more just put on some shoes, don't kick anybody, don't knee anybody, and just sharpen up my boxing. So it's kind of cool. It's not easy, but I would say going in there now, I only have to worry about your two hands. I
Right.
still get hit. I'm not saying like, oh, this is easy. But I'm looking at, we all have two hands, and that's all that you get to use in bare knuckle. Whereas opposed to MMA, like things can come at you from every which way. So it is kind of like fine tuning it and just getting sharper and just like straight boxing.
Does it feel restrictive knowing that when you get into the clinch, for instance, you can't use the knees? Is it hard to unlearn some of the stuff you had before and having to unlearn having those tactics?
You would think it is, but it's actually not. I don't know why. even when I fought for Glory Kickboxing, no elbows were allowed and stuff. And I'd been throwing elbows in MMA and, for a long time. For some reason, it just never clicked in my head. Like, I don't know, my brain just like turns that one off. It's really not that hard, no.
Is it? Now, there's this famous saying in fights that everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Now, you obviously go into a fight. You had a impressive victory over Daniel Spawn in Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship recently. When you prepare for a fight like this, what was your preparation like for a specific fighter like Daniel Spawn? And then how does it get impacted when you are punched in the face? Is it true? Does your game plan go out the window, or is that just talk for people who have never been in a fight?
I would say Mike Tyson said that, and that would be a little bit different getting hit by Mike Tyson, because if your brain's probably not functioning too well if you're still awake. But it is true, but I think it comes with experience, right? So my time in the gym, I mean, I get beat up all the time. I have good training partners. I've got world level guys I train with where you don't win every day. So for me, getting punched in the face, it actually, sometimes me getting hit actually makes me do better after that. I've had fights in the past, and this was one of them where it's a little slow. And then once I get hit, I'm like, okay, now everything's firing. And my brain just like kicks in and starts working. So yeah, I don't know. As far as training for Dan Spawn, I don't really change up much depending on my opponent. I just keep working on myself. I don't really worry about what they're going to do very much. I always want them to worry about what I'm going to do. Because if I focus too much on my opponent and what they're good at, I get away from what I'm good at. So I've always spent my career just working on making myself the best me for that night.
Sort of focusing on your strengths and not worrying about what the other guy is bringing to the table.
Yeah, and I'll pick, I mean, it's not 100% like that, but I'll take, 1, 2, maybe 3 things that I'm focusing on for that fight, like tendencies I've seen them do over and over and over again, or some kind of footwork or angle. But that's about it. I don't go in with like a step-by-step plan or a bunch of notes, because it's chaos, and you got to be able to work in the chaos.
As we talk about getting hit in the face and the chaos, and obviously there's setbacks and sometimes things don't go your way. For the times in your career, now you're undefeated in Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship so far, but historically, when you have suffered a setback, what is the mental process you go through to get back on track in general? Do you try to analyze what happened and fix it? Do you say, this is the past and I'm just throwing it in the past and forgetting about it? What's your approach to a setback in reaching some of your goals?
Oh man. So first it goes very dark, like it's losing a fight feels like the worst thing ever, because especially if they're on TV, everybody watches, and nowadays with social media and stuff, everybody can reach right into your living room and say bad things about you and this and that. And it'll bring you down for sure. But then I think that is like a good process of it though, because myself feeling bad about it makes me fixate on getting better, because I want to like show those people, like, I'll show you kind of thing. So then I do like to, like, say if I got submitted in MMA, I'll go to my coach and we will just drill it over and over and over again until I'm like, all right, I can't believe that happened. It'll never happen again, kind of thing. Like, because it happened because there was a problem. So it would be really arrogant of me to just throw it away and be like, oh no, that'll never happen to me again. So it's being able to put myself back in those uncomfortable situations until it doesn't feel uncomfortable anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's great advice for, obviously, for people who are in MMA, but also I think just anything. Like if you're on a diet and one day you fall off the wagon, I think it's good to let yourself realize you feel bad about it, and then figure out why you fell off the wagon in the first place and make sure you don't do it again and get back on the diet train or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's perfect. We all stumble a little bit. So being able to fix those and put your ego aside and work to grow will get you a lot further than denial.
So you've started to make a bit of a name for yourself in Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. You got 2 wins, both knockouts. What are your goals with Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship? Short term, long term? Who are some people you'd like to get in the ring with? What are some next steps for you as you get into your next fights?
Short term and long term is the same, right? I want to be world champion. So I'm looking at that for my next fight. I'm pushing for it. the champion right now is a guy named Lorenzo Hunt, and he has the light heavyweight and cruiserweight. So in bare knuckle boxing, light heavyweight is 195, where normally it's 205 in MMA, and
Yeah.
205 in bare knuckle is cruiserweight. So he holds both. And I'm pushing for that fight. You know, he keeps denying it, keeps saying no, but he's already beat everybody else in the rankings, and I've asked to fight all the guys in the rankings, and they've all said no. So eventually they're gonna have to make somebody fight.
Yeah. What's your thoughts when someone says no to a fight? Do you think that they're ducking you? Like, what's your thoughts when someone says they don't want to fight you?
No, I mean, ego aside, it's listen, we all fight, right? So nobody in there is scared to fight. It's just a strategy game. It's business strategy. It's money. You got to make noise to kind of sell the fight, make people want to see it. And, you know, so that's my job now.
So I would love to see that. You're on the hunt for Hunt to get that title fight. I think I would love to see it. I'm sure you would love to see it. But I want to ask a question a little aside from fighting here. I noticed that shirt you got on. It's a cool looking shirt. Is that one of those Fit Soda shirts?
Yeah, so I work for Fit Soda full time. I do like branding, marketing here. I'm actually at the office right now. And yeah, it's great. It's been fun. It's really cool because the opportunity came to me from fighting MMA. They were one of my sponsors a long time ago. I was the first athlete they sponsored, and it just grew into a friendship relationship, and then now a job and career with them. So I have a stake in the company, and we've been blowing up. You know, if you haven't heard of Fit Soda yet, you will. It's the healthy alternative to soda. So it tastes like soda, but there's 0 calories, 0 sugar, no artificial flavor or coloring. There's BCAAs and electrolytes in it, so it's a hydration drink. So everything I do for work literally involves sports and stuff. So I do endorsement deals with people, and I get to keep working with sports just on the other side, where normally I'm looking for sponsors. Now I'm the one that helps figure out who we're going to sponsor, who we're going to work with, and then how we're going to strategize that.
That sounds like an awesome alternative for soft drinks. I know I'm someone who always likes to have something to sip on, and sometimes water gets boring. If I wanted to pick up some Fit Soda, do I just get it from a local grocery store, or do I go online? How do people go about getting that?
Yeah, so we're online. We're in, I want to say, like 30,000 stores across the country. One's like let's see, Food Lion. We're in Sprouts nationwide, 7-Eleven, Circle K. I'd love to get your address after this, and I'll send you some to try.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, if you go to fitsoda.com, we have a store locator on our website because we're still working on taking over the entire country, but we are in a lot of places, even Circle K. Yeah, we're getting bigger and bigger every day, and it's a good problem to have because we've been exploding lately.
Well, I'm definitely going to pick some of that up because it sounds right down my alley as far as having something to drink all day, but not getting all the calories and sugar. So I'm excited to check that out. And I think everyone else should check that out. Also, where can the world find you and follow you and your journey, and when your next fight's going to be?
I would say I'm most active on Instagram. So that's at Chris Camozzi, MMA, like mixed martial arts. Maybe I needed to change that to BKFC now. I don't know. Yeah, I'm most active on there. And then I have a link tree in my bio so you can find all the other pages and yeah, all the other things I have going on.
All right. Well, Chris, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you stopping by, and I can't wait to see you in your next fight.
No problem. Thank you. And I look forward to talking to you again.